Derek Wheatley, and welcome to episode 63 of the Weekly podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in as always, and a big thank you to Gary and Paul Abbott for last week's episode. They're from the Big Beatles Sort Out podcast. We finally had our Beatles special that I've been kind of threatening for a long time now. So it was a lot of fun. We obviously, you can watch on YouTube. We put a clip up there yesterday, and yeah, it was fun, and it was fun to hear back from actually both my parents to talk about the Beatles, and they were around at the time, and it was interesting to hear what they had to say. Yeah, like I said, your YouTube channel is up and going now, and it's if you are listening to this on one of the podcast platforms, go on and watch us on YouTube. Why not? And subscribe if you would. Live and Joyful is an ongoing thing on Instagram Live. We haven't done it in a week and a half. I did one called Live and Pissed Off yesterday, so that was a new one for me. But hopefully that's just a once off. That was just how I was feeling. I was feeling a little bit annoyed, but that's okay. We're allowed to be like that as well. But anyway, that's enough for me. I think I've covered everything there. I'd like to introduce my guest as a filmmaker and an artist, and her name is Kitsch Doom. How you doing, Kitsch?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I just had a little. I wasn't very good for the last 2 days. I was a bit annoyed about stuff, and I guess you have to keep an eye on that kind of mental health side of things when something triggers you, and you just sets you off a little bit. But yeah, I'm all right today. But do you know what? I really look forward to doing the podcasts and to chatting to people, so that will cheer me up inevitably.
Yeah.
So listen. We'll get into it. Could you give me a short history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, of course, no problem. So I have kind of a strange one, I suppose. I was born in Miami, Florida. And yeah, my dad's Irish, my mother's American Italian. And I moved to Ireland then when I was about 12 years old. So yeah, I've been here ever since for the rest of my life then. And yeah, like it's kind of weird because I feel like I'm not from anywhere, if you know what I mean, because of this, which is nice. It's kind of freeing actually. And I think that's probably what fuels my like drive for not wanting labels in any way. So yeah, and I guess that's it really. Yeah.
Do you like Miami as a place?
Yeah, I love Miami because it's my home. I had
Yeah,
fond memories from my childhood there. Yeah.
that's pretty good. I was there. I was in Florida a couple of times. It's one of those states in America that seems to get a bad rap. For whatever
Yes.
reason, I don't know, but
Well, I know the reasons.
Okay, well, that's fair. So we won't get into
No.
getting down on Florida, because that would be grossly unfair to put you on the spot. When did you first become aware of mental health, Kit?
So, mental health, I suppose, is something that I've always struggled with throughout my life. Even as a child, I've always known like I felt really different. A lot of the time, I felt like it was difficult for me to make friends and things like that. And I felt sadness almost when I was a child as well. So it kind of has always been on my mind. Now, the actual topic of mental health, I only figured out when I was a teenager, I think, that this is something that everybody goes through. And I started to wonder about my own and things like that. And later in my when I was around 20, I started to think, okay, maybe I should go get diagnosed or something because I'm not feeling great. I suffered with depression a lot. I also had a lot of energy and things like that, so it didn't really make sense how I was feeling up and down quite a lot. It was hard to keep control of my life and balance in my emotions. And so I went and got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And yeah, it just made so much sense for me. And a lot of people don't like labels and things like that. But when I heard I had this, it actually made me feel like, okay, I know what I have and I know how to deal with it now rather than thinking I'm crazy, So yeah, that's why I was excited to come onto this podcast as well, because of you're talking about mental health, especially at a time like this when it's really needed. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And that's interesting actually you mentioned about labels, because I do think you're right. I think people are very wary of being called something, or being labeled as something. And but there is a reassurance sometimes in it as well, because if you are feeling like you're saying, you were feeling, depressed at times and then full of energy, very high at times, um you don't know what's going on. If there's nothing, if there's no like a medical opinion of you, you don't have a clue what's going on, and things can get away from you very quickly, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's how I was feeling. I was like, okay, I have no clue what's going on. I need some help. And we all have been there, with our
Mm,
mental health. We all need to stop and say, okay, I need some help now. And there's no shame in it. And
yeah.
like, I think there's a lot, I think it's a lot easier. This is something I think about a lot. I think it's a lot easier for women to kind of get help rather than men when it comes to mental health. That's what I've noticed. So I feel very privileged to have that, like, and not feel the stigma and things. But I have seen, like, say, in my male friends or even my brothers and stuff like that, it's much harder to ask for help. And that's another thing. Like, my work is like about gender, a lot of it, and like the struggles like that each gender goes through. And I think men have a lot of emotional kind of struggle.
Yeah, there's a it's not just one thing, obviously, but there's a macho kind of thing that we can, big boys don't cry kind of an idea, where it's a bit, it's hard to break away from that kind of thing because it's so entrenched in the kind of culture. I'd like to think that we are starting to maybe just pull away from it ever so slightly, but it's one of those things that you don't see until maybe 100 years down the line. It's one of those things you can't measure in years, or in single years. I want to talk to you about. I'm fascinated by alternate personas. Okay, I'm fascinated by people who used alternate personas for different reasons. So, like, but I know David Bowie was a big fan of using different personas, and Bono in the early '90s used different personas for the sake of like, his what he did on stage, obviously, but also like to see what he could get away with. And I kind of find that like a fascinating idea. um do you find like a comfort in your alternate persona or personas, or like is there a freedom to it?
Oh yeah, 100%. There's a freedom to it. And that's why it's so interesting to you probably and everybody else who sees it. Um, like, you're literally free from yourself.
Mm,
Like, right now I could act in any way that I can, I feel like. Whereas when you're yourself, say you're Derek and I'm Isabella, that's who I usually am. I feel expectation, I feel pressures on my past and what I'm expected to do in front of, say, family and friends,
mm,
people, what people expect of me in that moment in time because of how I look, because of my name, even.
mm.
And when I'm Kitsch, I really feel free to be who and what I like. And I think each character is almost a teacher to teach you something, like a lesson.
Mm. um is there like ever a cross pollination going on there between between Isabella and Kitch, or one of your other characters?
Yes, like Kitsch and Susie are like my two main characters that are like both my alter egos, actually. And they are very much a part of my life.
Mm.
Yeah, so part of my everyday life now.
So, like, the invention of these characters. When did this start? At what point did you decide to be kind of start to invent other characters?
So I didn't realize this until later on when I started to make art again. But I've always done it. I always actually had imaginary friends as kids and always like made up stories because, like I said, I felt quite lonely as a child.
Mm,
So the one thing that I felt so much freedom in, I felt always felt limited by the world. I always felt limited in the universe we're put in, with the reality we've been put in. So as a child, you have all this freedom to make up characters, to make a little world for yourself. And as you get older, that kind of magic goes away because
mm.
it's not really like allowed. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of that idea of we're supposed to forget that kind of playfulness when we do get a little bit older, which is kind of unfortunate. But thankfully you've been able to kind of hang on to it.
Yeah. Can I
When
just say something? Sorry.
Yeah,
My battery's gonna die. I thought it was plugged in. Do you mind if I plug it in?
not at all. You go
Sorry.
and plug it in there. That's
Sorry.
that's all
One
right.
second.
Um, I nearly knocked over my own computer there. Sorry about that. Now, I'll continue talking here. I hope everyone's doing all right. Um, just before we actually came on there, I was talking to Kitch about just why I had her on, and we will find out as we go along. Kitch is coming back now,
Okay, I'm back.
but Kitch is back, so we don't need to. I don't need to finish that little bit, but we're going to find out as we go along why I wanted Kitch to come on. So the Kitch Doom character. Where did the inspiration for your character come from?
So I started making characters again after forgetting completely about that side of myself um, for a very long time. When I went back to art college, and I went to NCAD, and I was in second year, and I was looking at some artists like Cindy Sherman. I was looking at who takes photos of herself, she does self-portraits as different people. So I was very, very inspired by her. And also I was learning about gender, and I was learning about drag. So when I was learning about this, it's like, wow, this is something I've always wanted to explore, but never knew enough about. And since learning about it, it really like changed my work completely. And that's when I started to perform. And the first character I ever performed was me being in drag. And that when I realized, when I turned myself into like, a drag character, when I looked into the mirror, I knew, okay, this isn't me anymore. This is somebody else. And I automatically started to act like my body language started to change to become this new person. And it happened naturally, and it felt so free. It's like a side of me that I was never allowed to have out. And it was almost like breathing for the first time, a new side of myself, a new character. And then that's why it feels like it's still a part of you. It is you. It's just another side of you don't let out. So yeah, he came out of like drag, really. And I think that's what all of my work kind of roots from the exaggeration of drag and things like that. Yeah.
That's how does that like tie in with your mental health? Is it something that because we just just before we came on, we were talking, and it's an interesting idea for me that would be something that would help with your bipolar.
Yeah, definitely. It's an outlet. Art has always been something that has been there for me always. When you don't have somebody to talk to, you have your artwork. It's always turned to, it's an outlet. You can always like count on it to be there. You know what I mean? So it has gotten me through so many tough times. And then this extra element of performance that I found like only a few years ago just helped me so much more to express myself and and to show how I feel on the inside and live it.
Yeah.
And make it a positive thing.
Yeah, that's hugely important, because I think with the idea of someone who does perform, who may be going through a certain cycle, a certain, we'll say a low, for instance, does that allow you to move away from that with the character you're in at the time, to get away from, because I think a lot of people always find it kind of hard to understand how maybe somebody who has a lot of anxiety, for instance, how do they perform, or somebody who may be going through depression, how do they perform? When you are feeling quite low, you can still get on that stage or whatever, because you have inhabited another character.
Exactly. It's magical. It really is. Like and I have done that before. If I'm not feeling good, like Isabella's not feeling good, I just say, okay, Kitsch, take over, do it for me, because you can do it. Or Susie's really bubbly, loves socializing. I'm like, Susie, you can do this. You do. I'm not in the mood, and sometimes they get tired, so it's a balancing act.
Yeah, so Susie's really bubbly. Describe Kitsch then in a couple of adjectives.
So Kitsch is a masculine figure, right? But he's also I'm going through like a transition into being non-binary. He doesn't like rules. He is very independent. is kind of unpredictable character, and not a lot of people like him. Like, he's kind of unpredictable because, yeah, like, people don't know what he's gonna say or what they're gonna say. You know, my family, some of them like him, some of them don't. So he likes to provoke people.
Okay.
He likes to ask questions. He likes to, like, just he's like unapologetically himself, you know?
Okay. But
Yeah.
thankfully on his best behavior today.
Yeah.
Because my
Just for
anxiety thought,
you.
yeah, because otherwise my
But
anxiety
you
go off the
never
charts.
know.
Yeah, but that's it. You do never know. So I guess that the payoff here is I'll be on my best behavior, and then we get back the same thing. I think that's the best way of
That's
doing
it. That's
it.
it.
But so
Exactly.
so as you were growing up, what was your I suppose your introduction to to the art world? Do you remember like the first inspirations, or the first time you thought, oh, that's something I'd love to do?
Um, it's hard to think about that as a first time because it's something that I've always known.
Mm.
Like, ever since I was a child, the first thing I would do before I would even talk was draw. So it kind of just called me. I always knew it was going to be part of my life. And I used to get sad, when I was younger, thinking, oh God, why, like when I was a teenager, why did I have to like something that wasn't going to be make me successful or
Mm.
make me money? Do you know? Because you're always told it's a hobby. It's nothing more than that. And I was told that a lot because my family are not the most artistic people. So I always like, why did I have to love this?
Yeah.
Why did I have to love this? And I knew I had no other choice but to do it, So in the end, I did it anyway. I'm so glad I'd never look back.
So that's great though. I mean, that you still went and did it, because it's a lot easier not to do things, as we all know. So drawing was the first kind of art that you explored.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's the most simplest way
Well,
of
for some people it's
expressing
not.
yourself.
For some people it's not simple at all. Trust me.
Okay, okay. Yeah. I guess it was just like easy for me. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
natural. But yeah, then when I was in NCAD, I did printmaking. I
Okay.
got into printmaking by accident, really. I thought I hated it, but now I love it. And then I started to do printmaking and filmmaking, which is
Mm.
kind of funny because print is so old and then film is really new. So
Yeah,
it
but
was an interesting.
that's great. Best of both worlds kind of a deal. I think that's really good. Um, how important, and I guess I can kind of talk about this myself, so I can be part of the conversation on this one. But the idea of creativity on your mental health, because I find, for instance, that if I am struggling, or you're having a bit of a tough time, whatever way you want to put it, I do think that it does help my mood. It's like picking up a guitar and singing a song, or like, whether it's you wrote it or not, just doing something that is art, or like writing a story, whatever. And then for you it'll be a lot of different things. How good is it for your mental health?
Oh God, it's everything, like it's a
Mm.
medicine for me. For me, I feel like I'm so lucky to be an artist. It's as my profession because art is a meditation for me. Like, I feel like I'm meditating all day just because I'm living my truth, but I'm also doing something that keeps me focused on something positive all day. And it's the same for people who pick up a guitar like you did and stuff. And everybody needs that in their lives, I think, especially if they suffer from mental health problems or anxiety. And who doesn't really? So I
Mm.
think creativity is something that we need to focus on more,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, like, I do think it needs to be promoted earlier and more often. Whether it's something as simple as picking up a guitar and playing other people's songs. There's something very soothing in that, like, and there's something very rewarding about it. And just
Yeah,
singing, and
definitely.
like, like, singing is like playing the guitar. You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to be even good at it. You can just do it regardless, because it does definitely release endorphins. Singing and that out loud. I just think it is so important, and it has been very important for me with regards to mood and my mental health. And I hope I continue to be creative in a very slow fashion, because that's the way I do it at the moment. So, when we're talking then about creativity in the last year, which has been a different challenge for people, how have you been creative during the pandemic?
Well, it's funny because we're not allowed to see people. I like to do things that we're not supposed to do, and I've been collaborating even more than ever. Not seeing people, but just online. I never
Yeah.
used to collaborate as much as I do now, and it's because we're not supposed to really, or we're not. There's so many obstacles doing it to do it, and yeah, I've just been literally collaborating online over Zoom. I've been as a performance artist, things have been difficult. I've just been starting to do more live things, and then Corona hit.
Mm,
And so I've been doing things on Instagram Live, like doing discussions, kind of like what you're doing,
mm.
just to get people to see that you can be still creative online. You can still perform in different ways. Sure, it's not the same, but it's doing something different. And I see social media now even as a medium.
Mm.
So it's kind of pushed me into different ways, different challenging ways, in ways that I never would have been pushed into before. So I always welcome obstacles as challenges.
Mm.
So yeah.
That's very interesting that you say about, social media as being a medium, because I think a lot of people are very, very down on social media. And I can be at times as well. I'm talking about more, Twitter and people being trolls and all that kind of stuff. But you would see it as a positive in places.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, it depends on how the person uses it.
Mm,
You can use it in a positive way, but now I realize you can make artwork on it. I've been making artwork on it, like I've been doing discussions as different characters, and letting people kind of improvise and speak and perform with me. So they're kind of performances in themselves, and I would even see this as a performance because I'm in
mm.
character. So and I didn't tell you I was going to be doing this, so it's like you're improvising a bit with me, and that's how I see it. And it depends on how you see it, and depends on what you would think if it's art or not, but it raises questions.
It's very interesting because I obviously knew your name, Kitsch Doom, through Instagram. So I just want to explain to people. So the character was, it says on your page, fictional character. So I thought, okay, this is the first time I have like a fictional character on. But chatting to you beforehand, and you were nice to tell me that you were in character. So I was able, not that I wasn't scared or anything like that, but the idea of, someone being in character outside of themselves, it would have been, I would have been very interested to know, Isabel, maybe I've chatted to Isabel, 2 or 3 months ago, and then I'm talking just to see what the difference is. Like, that's just again pure curiosity on my part on the idea of the change of characters and how someone does it, because it's not something that I've ever explored. It's just that's just me being kind of fascinated by that alternate persona again, and me being interested in that. But we're going to get back into it. I just want to stumble through this ad, and then we'll get back.
Sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Has to be done.
it does have to be done, even though it's not paid. This is not a paid advertisement, everyone. Just so we know. Fusion Training Center, Monksland Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center, train like a warrior. That was all right, actually. Bit rushed, but that's okay. I didn't make a mistake. So when did when within all these arts that you like to do, when did filmmaking become a thing for you?
So filmmaking became a thing around the same time. No, not at the same time. It was around the same year that I started to make characters.
Mm.
And then I decided, I was thinking about the characters so much that they started to speak to me, and they were like, hey, we want to talk to each other now. So I kind of did it because they wanted to talk to each other, and I wanted to see how I could do that. And the only way to do that was through film. So I made my first film in my final year. And yeah, it was definitely a rewarding experience. I really enjoyed it because I didn't realize how much I how much I really miss storytelling
Mm.
and how important it was to me. And that's when it all just started, and I never stopped.
Can I ask then who would have been your, you know, looking back, who would have been your inspiration then as filmmakers, I suppose?
So at the time, I wasn't really looking at filmmakers.
Mm.
Actually, like I said, I was looking more at Cindy Sherman and kind of like Claude Cahoon and stuff. Like, and they were mainly photographers. So what I really wanted, and I love David Lynch and also Tarantino films. So I guess like subconsciously, I always had that in the back of my mind. And yeah, I always like this kind of like exaggerated, like these figures in Tarantino films, all the
Mm.
blood and all that stuff. I love all that. And I kind of played with that as well. And then David Lynch always has this like really eerie, like dark, kind of like puzzling kind of look as well. So I guess I'm always inspired by those two.
Uh, when I was out running this morning, I was trying to think of like filmmakers that may have inspired you, and this is just and I'm not making this up now. People are going to go, "No, you didn't." I thought of David Lynch, okay, but it was more to that wasn't that was to do with some of the stills that I saw on your page, though. That was more to do with that. What I thought, what made me think of Lynch was that there's something very old and something very new in what he does. His A lot of his storytelling seems very 1940s, 50s film noir, mysteries. But then when you see a lot of his visuals, they're very much almost of the time, but of even of before its time. So that made me think
Yeah.
of Lynch, and some of your own characters made me think of Lynch. Um, what is the clothes were you about?
So The Clothes Were You is Meryl Daze's debut. This film is about basically Meryl finds herself in a dreamscape, and she realizes quickly that she's kind of stuck there and she has no voice. So she's a voiceless character in this film. It's kind of like a dream slash nightmare.
Mm.
And she just is very calm about it, and she's realizing, well, I can't speak, so let me see how I can communicate. So she tries on some different types of clothing that she finds there, and this is the first time I was making sculptures, and I decided to implement sculpture and performance together. And it happened quite naturally. And my work is a lot about improvisation, because I think honesty comes out through that. Whenever people improvise, a bit of truth comes out. So Meryl finds a way to communicate through an archetypal media figure, which is Marilyn Monroe. She's obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. She aspires to be like Marilyn Monroe. She's an old-fashioned kind of gal.
Mm.
And yeah, it's very much about like the perspective of women. It's about um, Meryl Daze is a character, a hybrid character. Most of my characters are hybrids. She's a hybrid between a burglar and a bride. And the reason for that
Let's
is,
go.
yeah, that's why she has the stalking over her. And people are really scared of her. But she's sweet, actually. That's the thing. All my characters are actually very sweet. And but they look scary. So she's a burglar and a bride, basically, because it's I was trying to show that you know, expectations like marriage and the expectation of having that role of being a mother and a bride
Mm.
can almost take over a true identity, because you have to act a certain way because of your age, because of that label, because of all of those things that come under that. So it's almost like an identity theft. So that's what the whole thing was about.
I think people find, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the stocking over the head, all right. Maybe it's just the idea of a burglar with the stocking over the head. Maybe that's why people find it, and it does do wonders to the face. Like that idea of it being pulled back. It does make everybody kind of. I think someone commented under a picture of Meryl that Meryl looked very like Lady Gaga. I think that was that one.
Yes.
And I can now see the kind of resemblance even without the stocking on the head, which is interesting. But um, the film then, if how long did that whole process take?
The film. So that film was actually very quick. Making the character Meryl Daze took a little bit of time, maybe a few weeks. I did a quick performance as her as well to kind of figure out the character. The longest process is finding out who the character is. And the only way to find that out is to be them. And so that took maybe a few months. And then the actual film, to write it, I think it was kind of bubbling in my mind for maybe a week. The final idea actually came to me the night before filming, which happens a lot to me. And so, yeah, that happened. And I came into the studio and I was like, okay, I have the idea. And then we did it quite naturally. So everything happens quite quickly once the character is made.
Were you like, when you had finished it, were you happy with it?
Oh yes, I was delighted with it. Yeah.
Well, that's
I mean,
important.
and no, I didn't even need to edit it really. Like it was shot so well. Like it was shot by the technician Julia in NCAD, and she's very talented. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's important, because how often do we hear that somebody has the vision in their mind, and then when it goes out on the film or on the page, it's not quite what they wanted, and it must be kind of very disheartening when that happens, you know. And how did the response go for it? It was accepted at a couple of festivals and that, wasn't it?
Yeah, like the response has been amazing. I never thought that it would get as far as it has, really. Yeah, it's so it's won a good few awards. It's won 4 awards for Best Experimental, won in New York Film Awards, won in LA Film Awards, um, won in FilmCon, won prestigious in LA. It's won various semifinals, like finalists and stuff. So it's been doing really well in America, especially.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Where can people see it?
So at the moment, that's good that you asked that, because at the moment, it's actually on Flickfair. So there you can see that in my Instagram, on my bio. There's a link to it, and you can just. I think it's like €4 or something for the festival pass. You can see everybody's films there. Yeah, so that's where you can see it at the moment.
Go to Kitsch Doom Instagram and you will see it there.
Yeah.
KITSCH Doom.
Yes.
Just to get it right there, you know.
Yeah.
But I am. Is it something that you want to do in the future, like continue to do in the future, filmmaking?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I already have a new project in the works. So for all my characters, it's going to include Kitsch, it's going to include Susie, it's going to include Belt Man, Meryl, and their 2 new kids. I have those 2 new characters coming up very soon, so keep an eye out for them. I recently got funding to write the script, so that's coming soon. So yeah, I hope to do this for a long time. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And you are funded by the Arts Council of Ireland, is that right?
Yeah, I just got funding from them, which is awesome.
For anyone who is listening to this and they are interested in going down that route, how do you go about like applying for that?
So the application is actually very straightforward. You just need to like read the guidelines very carefully, which is what I did. They have very specific, they ask for very specific things depending on what you're applying for. So I applied from the Arts Council for a film bursary. And that was the one I applied for, was basically just to give time to an artist to, collect their thoughts or to research or, like in my case, write a script. It's not for like paying for any equipment and things like that. You know what I mean? Or even to have to fund an actual project. It's just to get yourself together for the next project. Yeah. So yeah, like just read the guidelines and always be doing something, because like your CV has to you have to always be busy. You have to always be doing something. Yeah.
Excellent. Have there been I just thought this question. Have there been characters that have come to you and then you've thought, no, I won't go with this character?
I love this question. Actually, it's funny because no, I've made every single character I've ever thought of. Yeah. It's funny because I just think of them and then I form a relationship with them in my mind. I'm like, no, you will have your time. Let's do this, you know?
Yeah. I think it's, yeah, I think it's, you know, that's, I can't, when I think, I used to write short stories, I used to think of characters, but they were obviously flat 2D on the page characters. And in my head, they were 3D and everything. But, you know, the idea of them being just on the page was something that I felt that I could just go with anyone. You know, like if a real nasty person or a horrible person, I could put on the page and people would read it and go, oh, that's horrible. But they wouldn't necessarily draw back that character to me. They wouldn't trace it back to me because it's not my face as the character. Do you know what I mean? But if you are the character, and so, and you know, you're of a certain way, like you were saying, Kitsch likes to kind of wind people up, and a bit of rebellious streak. I guess that's what I mean by, if it is someone that you think of that isn't quite a nice person, would you still go with that character? Do you think there's still room to explore that character?
Oh yeah, of course. I think like I love people and I love all different types of people. I think we can learn so much from different kinds of characters, whether they bring something good, whether they bring something bad. I mean, that's a story. There's good and bad in everything, isn't
Mm,
there? And good
yeah,
and bad in everybody. Yeah.
for sure. Speaking of characters, you put a post up there recently enough, about Meryl Daze, who we've discussed. And Meryl is in the wedding dress, I believe. Yeah, is it a wedding dress?
Yes,
It is a wedding
yes,
dress, yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And Beltman. So who is Beltman?
So Beltman is her husband.
Hmm.
Beltman is a shy kind of character. He's a hopeless romantic as well. He's very sweet. He loves his family and he always takes out the trash. And he's quite,
That's nice. I like it.
yeah, he's very mysterious. And the new film that I'm making is actually going to be, so far, it could change. It's called Beltman so far.
Okay.
I'm hoping it will be a feature length. And the whole thing is about their family, and it's all about the whole story is kind of circling around the question, who is Beltman? So
Hmm.
everybody wants to know who he is, and yeah, so he's a sweet, mysterious, shy but kind of playful character.
Uh, yeah, like people might ask who he is because of the fact that they can't, he's not visible. The face isn't visible. What is the? Where did you get the idea for the way his, his just the way his face is covered? Or first of all, I suppose describe it for people who may have not seen the picture.
Yeah, so Beltman's mask is basically a mask made out of belts and
Mm.
leather belts. So I wanted to make like a male counterpart for Meryl, and that's kind of where it came from. And I started to think about very masculine things that he could be covered with, and it's kind of about toxic masculinity as well, and how that can really like also hide an identity,
Mm.
and performing as a macho kind of guy, and how that can be like, it can be concealing of who a person really is. So it was quite like that, and I kind of felt, okay, this might be a little dark, but I don't like really edit my ideas. They're really like raw,
Mm.
I just go with the first idea I have, that's just how I roll. But I think it's better. I think it's more, like, it's fierce and it's like easy to communicate as well. I don't like, making my art difficult to understand, even though it might be to some people. But yeah, so he it's just a masculine kind of thing covering his face because it talks masculinity, a lot of it.
Yeah, so there's like, it almost seems like there's a sharp contrast between, like a dichotomy between what we see of Beltman and the way you've described Beltman as this really
Yeah.
sweet and nice guy. And that, I think that's fascinating. Why has it been why is it so important for you to talk about gender in that way, or bring it out in your work? Because obviously you've mentioned it a couple of times as we're talking here, and it just seems to be something that's very, very important to you. When did that begin, I suppose?
So gender has always been a topic in my mind, again, even since I'm a child, because I never really liked being dressed. I didn't like being told like that I had to be this way or that way because I was a girl, you know?
Mm.
And some days I would feel very masculine, even as a child, and some days I'd feel very feminine. So I actually have realized through my art that I'm actually gender fluid. That's the best way to describe it. I don't like labels, but if I had to describe how I feel inside, it would be gender fluid. I believe gender is not a fixed state.
Mm.
And not everybody believes that or agrees with that, but that's how I feel inside. And it's more about like, it's not really about gender, like the physical like side of gender. It's more how you, it's more like the historical kind of concept of gender and the performance that we all are taught how to be like a girl, how to be like a boy, what's the right way to be, and how that actually can conceal an identity as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. There's it's fascinating that it's taken until, I don't know how long it's been, but it hasn't been a long time, it seems, that people have started to kind of bring this into the it's always the art worlds that leads the way anyway. It is always like the art that leads the way, and then we kind of follow along with, slow and our heads bowed. But yeah, that idea of gender being discussed in that way is very important. um there's an interesting thing about creativity that always has always gone on in my head, where I used to write to music. So I'd always had something playing in the background, and if I really wanted to get something, if I really wanted to get like smart or intelligent, I'd listen to this heavy lyrical music while I wrote, like Dylan or those people who wrote, just pure poetry, I suppose. Does that help you with your different art forms? Like, do you meld different art forms together? Is music has music helped to create a character, maybe, or with the filmmaking, has that come through from your characters? That kind of style.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that because music is like the number one inspiration for all my work, all my characters. Like, I'll listen to a song if I want to learn more about a character, think of more about a character. I'll like, I kind of do method acting. So like, I'll try to become that character, and I'll listen to music, and then that character be like, yeah, I like this song, and then we'll start to listen to it, and then I start to make a story about that character based on the song. So my new film is actually, I'm listening to a lot of Radiohead right now. That changes a lot. I know, they're
I
so
love I
good.
love them. Yeah.
I'm obsessed with them. But so for this new film that I'm thinking of, I've been listening to a lot of Radiohead. One of my favorite songs from them is "Life in a Glass House," and yeah, listening to that, I realized, oh, okay, I need to build a glass house for these characters because it's all about like kind of an honest depiction of a family in the domestic space. So it was just fitted so well. So yeah, I'm very, very inspired by music always.
Funny you mentioned Life in a Glass House, because it seems to be in itself a melding of something else, like a jazz, chord progression into a Radiohead song. And they clearly were inspired by that kind of movement. And it's always important for artists anyway to dip in and out of other things, because something may not stick. Like you may we'll say photography, you may look at photography and may not be inspired by it, but that's fine. But then go on to something else, try and find whether it's painting or visual arts, all those kind of things, like filmmaking, that you are, that does kind of blow you away. And it's interesting about you talking about Radiohead there, and it's because when I really want to get something out of me, really what I think I have something to offer, but I can't quite figure it out, I do tend to kind of latch on to someone like Radiohead or the Beatles, or a band, or even like one of the best examples of someone telling me what I should do when I'm struggling with writer's block, because I was going through a heavy depression, or really feeling down. Someone said, just stop writing or stop playing music, whatever it is. Go and turn on your favorite film. You might have seen it 50 times. They used Reservoir Dogs for an example. There is actually a poster just behind my head there. You can see of Reservoir Dogs, but they just used it for example, where you just can go and you don't have to focus 100% on that particular film, because you've seen it, 50 times. You've know all the lines, but it's just to get yourself into a different headspace, but remain in that creative, kind of zone. And I do think those kind of things are very important for younger artists coming through, that they hear that kind of stuff and they go, oh yeah, well that's interesting. Always be like curious, you know, always be try and find something, that because you'll find the oddest things. I Diane Arbus, okay, you know, the photographer Diane Arbus. I like someone told me about Diane Arbus, and I was like, I don't think I'd be into her photos. And I went off and looked at them, and they're completely mesmerizing, and they're portraits, you know, and you know, of different people, and they just to me are a fascinating example of a person just going around with a with a camera and just taking photos of people, and they're just amazing. You know, it's just someone with an eye for it. So yeah, I think people should just keep doing that. You know, um, will this? I guess we've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but like, will alternate characters, that'll always be there with you, won't it? It seems that it's something that's a massive part of your art. Have you mute yourself?
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
you go.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So yeah, it is definitely a big part of my work. And I think I can't tell the future, but you know,
Mm.
because I like to change a lot, but I think it will always be a part of my work because it is a huge part of who I am. And I've come to realize that.
Yeah, it's clearly something that's you're obviously very talented at it, though. It's not just like you're just, you know, having a go. Just like, you know, it's something that you're able to do. And I think there is certainly a bravery to it, because as we're talking, I'm thinking about it more and more. The idea of you continuing to create characters and create films around them, create art around them. That to me is something it's very brave. Um, are people
Thank
like,
you.
and that's okay. Are people shocked by like, you know, Meryl, like, and you did mention that about people being some people being afraid of her, but like Belt Man or Porndala, which is that's not it behind you, is it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are people shocked by that initially when they first kind of come in contact with it?
Yeah, I'm sure there would be a lot of people who would be shocked by it. Um, and I just don't feel like I used to feel a lot like, oh, I'd be worried about what I'd put out or what kind of work I'd make. And I've realized that my work is very much about sexuality as well,
Mm.
because gender and sexuality go hand in hand. And there's kind of like this relationship there where like it's there'll always be there. Like your sexuality and your gender are separate things, but they're seen as the same thing a lot of the time. And I guess that's something that I've realized, that my work is very sexual. And even like the masks and things and the bondage is very like about like it looks very fetish. And it's because it is kind of, I suppose, I didn't do that in a conscious way, but it just happened that way. And now I know it just fits perfectly. So Porn Dala is kind of like the first piece I made in 2021, but it's also like me realize, okay, my work is about sexuality. It is about sex. And it's very much about like how technology is affecting us in such deeply personal ways, including our sexuality, our gender, everything like that. And how images, I'm reading a book called Performing Images, a performing image by Isabel Harbison. And basically, she says that we're a Western society performing images because we are imitating things that we see online, which is
Mm.
very true. And we are becoming these images. And that's the same, it's the same case for like, you know, pornography and things like that. We're like, you know, watching these things and we're like, you know, performing these things in the bedroom as well. So like it's a full circle and we're being changed completely as a human race by technology and by images.
There's a fascinating documentary online. I don't actually think of I've mentioned it on here before, but it was something I was really dug into there a few weeks ago. It's an Adam Curtis documentary, 6 part, on YouTube. It actually is on, and it's called "Can't Get You Out of My Head." And it's about like he calls, what does he call it, the an emotional history of the modern world. And it's fascinating, but it talks about certain things that you've just mentioned there, and technology, and how what we think up here is what we're putting together in the circuit boards of computers and stuff. And it's long, it's about maybe 9 hours or something, but it's a fascinating thing. And yeah, it's a bit long, but it's a fascinating kind of idea. And it makes me, you know, that what you were saying there about something like bondage, where people will see Belt Man, that's might be what they think about, like bondage, but you didn't think about it going that, like, that's not your initial thought going in.
No.
So, uh, so when you tell people that, do they kind of go, oh, come
They
on,
don't believe me.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, they don't believe me. And it's funny. Like I started to think about bondage, and like when I was thinking about these characters, I wanted them to be bound because of, like, the toxic masculinity, because of like this performance they have to do, and a little bit I wanted them to look like they're a little trapped by it, by these expectations, because that's how it feels and that's how it looks to me. And again, the exaggeration was just like, that's how I work. And then I realized that, yes, I see why, like, people see that. Of course, it's very in your face. I didn't realize that, like, the you know the tights over Meryl's head was going to be something to do with that as well. Actually, I had no clues. I don't watch this. I don't judge. That's fine.
Mm.
Like, I think that's great, whatever you're into. But like, I had people saying, like, random guys saying, "Oh, you look so good here," and stuff, like DMing me. I'm like, what? Really? Okay. All right. And then I realized, oh, this is like a sexy thing, this is a fetish. And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is kind of part of the work. I can't escape it. So instead of escaping it and trying to say, no, it's not about that, it is about that. And that's kind of how my work kind of, almost, because it's made in a way that's like subconscious a lot of the time, like David Lynch. It almost tells me what it's about. It's like, revealing itself to me. So the fact that it is very sexual and it is about fetish and bondage and things like that, it kind of happened naturally, and it works. It works for the work.
I think, when talking about conscious and subconscious, and, like, on the surface level, obviously people might look at someone like Beltman or Meryl as like a bondage or a sexual thing, but obviously what you're thinking is a lot deeper than that, and it's like going into a gallery and seeing someone sees this painting one way, and then another person goes in and sees it's completely separate, and that's the actual brilliance of art. It's the same as listening to music, it's watching a film. You can all see it in different ways, and it can have different meanings to you. Um, so then, when you're not creating, what do you like to do in your spare time, if you have any?
I don't have any. This is my life. Yeah, I don't have any spare time. I mean, this is my life. It's also my hobby. It's like everything to me. So, I mean, maybe I watch films. I watch films in my spare time. I started playing Candy Crush.
I've never played it.
Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't admit that, but I do.
Hey, my next question was going to be, have you started something new during the pandemic? So I guess you've answered that as well. Like,
Well, yeah, that's one of them.
that's all right.
But yeah, I've started. What else have I started? Oh, I started to try to learn Blender,
Okay.
just a 3D software, because I'm trying to make a 3D house for my characters. So I want to blend like different types of realities, because that's what kind of the work is about. I want their environment to be like kind of like lo-fi, a house like that's obviously fake, so fake surroundings, but them to be real.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you with technology? Is it something that you've embraced fully as a creative person?
Like a few years ago, I had no clue about technology at all. But because now I'm a media artist, I've had to dive headfirst and just learn everything I can. And I love technology now. It can be a pain in the. Can I curse? The
Yeah, of course
butt.
you can. Yeah. Curse all you want.
Okay, it can be a pain in the ass, and it's I love it, I hate it. We have a strange relationship, but I'm still learning. I'm always learning, and now I realize we need it, and I want to just learn as much as I can.
Can I ask you a bit about Radiohead? Because I haven't had anyone on to talk to me about Radiohead in 63 episodes. I'm a massive Radiohead fan. I would always say that for me, it's like the Beatles, Nirvana, and Radiohead were the three major influences for me as as a musician. And do you have a favorite song, favorite album, or is it more of a just the idea of them as a whole is what you enjoy?
I love them as a whole, really, Yeah. Like I really like Kid A.
Mm,
I think that's a good album. But yeah, I'm not like super, super like I know every single song kind
yeah.
of fan, but I've seen them. I definitely like listen to them a lot. I over listen to them, and I had to stop for a few years and now I'm back doing it again.
Yeah, it's you do get drawn in with great bands. I mean, it just comes natural where you just can't stop listening to them. And yeah, I was lucky enough to see them live, and they blew my mind a bit, you know. And I got actually on the Kid A tour. I was I don't know, 18 maybe, and I remember seeing them, and it was just I couldn't wrap my head around how they were doing it, what they were doing, and I like bands who are. I think everybody seems to like bands that are hellraisers, and they like bands that trashed hotel rooms and things like that. I don't really like those kind of bands. So those three bands I mentioned weren't really like that. I know Kurt Cobain liked to smash up a guitar on stage, but he didn't break up hotel rooms. Like it was his own guitar, I suppose. I like the idea. I like the art, the artists being there for the art more than the money and the all the kind of stuff that comes with it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, amen to that. I
Mm.
agree with that 100%. Like, and a lot of people, like, when they first see me, like, just like not in character or whatever, they're like, you don't look like an artist. You don't, and I live for it, and it's funny how you're supposed to live a certain lifestyle and look a certain way to be considered like a cool artist or a
Mhm.
cool rock band. Do you know what I mean? So I really appreciate when people just are there because the love for it. I
Mm.
agree with you. Yeah.
There's a weird romanticism in the idea that everybody's room should look like Francis Bacon's, or do you know that kind of idea where
Yeah.
like the place should just I don't really get that. Like why not just create and be brilliant the way you are, and then go about your own thing. So I know you said looking into the future and stuff like that, but immediate plans, I guess things are going to open up pretty soon, in the next few weeks, hopefully. You're collaborating with people, like you said already. You've been performing. Is performing a big thing for the future for you?
Yeah, like I think performing is a huge part of my work now. As I think me being all the characters is important as well because it's about really like how fluid identity is and how many like characters we can all play in our lives and how many
Mm,
roles we can take on. I think everybody has the possibility of doing what I do. I don't think I'm particularly like good at it or anything. I think anybody could do it if they really tried to do like method acting and things like that. And I've actually written my thesis about kind of what I do. Like it's called method living. So it's using method acting in a way like that you use it on an everyday basis, almost like a form of meditation to be free from yourself and to learn through a character that you've made yourself or even a character you just like. Um, and yeah, there's so much you can learn from that. Sorry, what was the question? Did I like totally go off a tangent there?
no, it was about performing in the future.
Performing.
Yeah,
Oh, performing. Yes, I think performance will always be in my life now.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, Method acting is a funny old thing. I've never done it. But the idea, the idea of it, I guess when I read about people like Day Lewis and Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift, those people who were able to transform themselves into a character and stay there for 6 months and supposedly make their partner's life a living hell or something like that because they never left, particularly if the character wasn't a very nice person, which Day Lewis seems to excel at. But it's an interesting thing, and good luck to you in it all, and it's been an honor and a privilege chatting to you today. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Same to you. It's been an honor to meet you and to have me to just be on the show to talk about my work. So thank you so much.
No, it's great, and we always appreciate people being as open as you are about your work and your mental health and things like that. It's great. Stick with me for 1 minute until I wrap up the show, and I'll just get a photo with you, if that's all right, Kitsch.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you very much to John for all his technical savvy. to the usual people, the usual suspects, my mum, my dad, my grandfather, Ger for the art, and Calvin for the music. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. We're on the usual spaces as the Weekly, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Anchor, all those podcast ones. We're on about 6 of them. As always, to everyone for listening and for watching, if you have watched, thank you very much. Obviously, as the title of our podcast suggests, we'll be back next week. But really appreciate it, Kitsch. Thank you very much. And thanks, to everyone. And take care and all the best.